You are listening to the Social Science KLAI-descope. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Social Science KLAI-descope. Another episode and another guest. But before we introduce the guest, please check out the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Follow the socials for the podcast at KLAI.descope on Instagram, or follow me on Twitter at KMDLAI. All right, so I have another special guest, like I said, and she is wonderful. I actually recently met her since I moved to New York, so this is not actually a college friend or a colleague from the New York Fed. We have Anjile Ann on the show. What's up?
Woohoo! Very excited to be here.
Yeah, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. This is really weird saying your full name because so how we met was we met playing Ultimate Frisbee in 2019. We played for the same club team, and everyone on the team knows you as Jelly. So how does that nickname come up?
That is a very good question. I've tried to shed my nickname after all these years of playing Frisbee, but unfortunately, it seems to still stick. I think Anjile is too many syllables. But freshman year, when I showed up to my first ever UC Berkeley Pie Queens practice, they asked for a fun fact about me. And I said that I've been stung by a jellyfish. And if you look, you can see the scar on my arm. Yeah. And that was maybe like 15 years ago at this point. And so, yeah, it stuck. Jelly sounds enough like my real name that, I still respond to it. But that was many years ago, and I'm still known as Jelly by anyone who plays Frisbee.
Wow, that is, and you've never, so this started in college and you never shed it even after in your professional life.
Yeah, in club, in the Bay Area, club here. Yeah, seems to be one of those nicknames that has followed me.
I see. All right, so we're going to refer to you as Anjile today, but normally I would call you Jelly.
Sounds good to me.
For those of us out there that don't know who you are, could you do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Anjile. I am a programmer, analyst, and statistician at Weill Cornell Medicine. I did my MPH at Columbia's School of Public Health. I graduated in 2019, right before I met KLAI here. And before that, I was at UC Berkeley for my undergrad.
Cool. And so, yes, we have a public health expert today on the show. And so this is going to be kind of different from the normal type of guests. But, we both have the same kind of research background and have some research interests while they might not be in the same thing. And I don't know if you know this, but I did take statistics, or that was like my second major in college. So there's another kind of bridging gap right there. So yeah. I might not know a lot about the biology, but hopefully I could keep up with the statistics part of that. So
love it.
I just want to kind of jump into your background real quick. How did you get into the public health space in the first place?
So in college, I think much like a lot of folks, science felt like it was just biology, chemistry, or physics. Things like public health was kind of a foreign concept, or I didn't realize that was something you could study. And so it took getting to college and taking a lot of intro classes and meeting other people to figure out that this is a viable, not just major, but also career. I actually also studied cognitive science in undergrad. And I worked as a graphic designer and UI UX designer for a little bit before making the hard pivot back to public health and going to grad school. But I think both of them are very similar, both of those fields, in that they're so interdisciplinary. I feel like I just couldn't decide on studying one single thing. And so I tried to pick majors that allowed me to take classes across the entire spectrum from, neuroscience to linguistics and philosophy.
Oh, okay. So basically you were more of the approach of like, I want to try a bunch of different things and then hopefully like after graduation kind of settle on something. But, To me, it seems like even then, public health is a very broad field. Like, there's so many different fields within public health as well. So, in
Totally.
terms of your transitioning from college to your master's program, what was that like, and how did you kind of settle on what you ended up studying? And do you think you'll continue to study what you studied in your master's program?
So I studied epidemiology and biostatistics in my master's program. And it's a side note, COVID, the best thing COVID has done for me was now everybody knows what epidemiology actually is.
Uh-huh.
So that's been very exciting. Some of my family thought I was a skin doctor for a long time because, like epidermis. Um, but I think you also make a really good point that public health is in social science. Like it covers a huge breadth of things. And when I was in my master's program, I took classes like health economics. Like that's a huge, huge part of it. And like the way you spend money on not just preventative health, but also how do you work with hospitals? Like there's a huge variation in the field. Mine is more of the methodology, but my classmates studied like population and family science or socio-medical sciences or environmental health or health policy and management. And the kind of paths a lot of us took are very different. So again, do a very research heavy role. I do statistics and programming, whereas I have friends who for my master's program are now not management consultants, but they're consultants in healthcare. And there's also folks I'm sure working in health economics. So the paths you can take are extremely diverse. And I think that makes what I do very interesting.
I see. I see. And then, how did you come across? How did you come to the decision that you wanted to do like the Masters of Public Health program? Because at least for me, taking the step to apply to grad school, there was some kind of motivating factor, and a lot of my peers were doing it, and it was kind of like the path that was set for me. But for you, coming straight out of college and going into the master's program, what was that decision like?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Part of it was because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. And I say this as a joke, but I wanted to play my 5th year of college ultimate by going straight to graduate school. But I think I met a lot of people who worked in public health, and you kind of need a master's to do a lot of the more, I think, higher level jobs. Obviously you can get entry level jobs, but I kept looking at job descriptions for things that interested me, like, epidemiologist and, analyst. And most of those descriptions had masters required. And so it kind of showed me that this is something I should probably pursue in order to, reach my goals or enter the industry that I want to be in.
Yeah. Okay. I see. So essentially, it was kind of like in some sense, it was career driven based off of what you saw online, and looking at the requirements for those jobs. I mean, I don't know. I feel like job descriptions nowadays are they're very tough.
Arbitrary.
Yeah, and arbitrary too, but like more so tough. It's like, oh, like at least applying to PhD programs in economics, from like there's always jokes about like, oh, like you have to, have written your first paper and like co-authored on like a bunch of other different working projects before you can even get into the grad school that will help you,
Right.
that will train you to do that type of stuff. And so
Right.
I don't know if you found that to be the case as well for a lot like your master's program and things like that.
Yeah. I'm sure, I think a PhD would be very similar. It kind of feels like a kind of cyclical reasoning where, you need publications in order to get in. But once you get in, that's when you get trained to write publications. And so I feel like that's tough.
Right.
But I think for a master's, the Master's of Public Health is a professional degree. And so I was the youngest in my entire cohort. Lots of folks had worked for, I would say on average 2 to 3 years and then come back to school. But I also had classmates who were, my parents' ages, who'd come back to either just learn or they wanted some sort of career transition.
I see. Huh. Yeah, I actually, this is a funny story because
Hmm.
I have a cousin that did a master's of public health at
Mm.
USC, and she's like way older than me. But like at the time when I was considering kind of a bunch of careers, because of like my statistics background, I think it was
Hmm.
like between my sophomore and junior year, it was pretty depressing in the sense that I was like kind of looking for internships, and then I landed on like a research opportunity, but it wasn't like an official kind of company or internship and stuff. And so I was like kind of like looking through the LinkedIn profiles of
Right.
like the people that I knew, the very few people
Hmm.
that I knew, and I came across her profile, and then she did an MPH, and she was like doing biostatistics as well. And so I was just, that kind of what piqued my interest in terms of
Yeah.
when I was studying more statistics, I was like very focused on like the health aspects of it or the health parts of it.
Very
It
cool.
obviously did not pan out, but that's kind of how I first got exposed to the Masters of Public Health. Did you ever consider doing a PhD at all? Or
Oh, yeah. I went into my master's thinking I was going to take a year off and go into a PhD.
oh, interesting.
Um, because I really enjoy research. I think it's something that I like the idea of, adding to the body of scientific knowledge.
Hmm.
I like the process of putting together a paper and, being handed a research question and solving it.
Hmm.
And I think more importantly, I really liked teaching. I
Mm.
think the best part of my master's experience was getting to be a TA. So I TA'd in my second year, for the first year classes. And that was a true joy. And I think that's something that I valued the most coming out of my program.
Hmm.
I'm lucky that in my job now, we have a master's program at Weill Cornell in data science and biostatistics. So as staff, we get to TA them. And I
Oh,
got to
cool.
teach the data management class this semester because the faculty was on maternity leave. And but then I spoke to a lot of faculty and I spoke to folks, and they helped me realize that teaching is actually what interests me in doing the PhD, not necessarily the research. And I'm sure you also know, but the cycle of getting grants and getting yourself
Hmm.
funded is really stressful,
Hmm.
and there's a whole very strong like publish or perish
Right.
lifestyle for academics. And I think that part sort of turned me off when I realized the reality of what doing a PhD would actually entail.
Hmm.
Um, and so now I've shifted kind of my focus where I think of eventually I would love to be a community college teacher where I
Mm.
don't have to do the research part. I can just be a good teacher for my students.
Cool. Yeah, it's very interesting to hear that you enjoy teaching, and I know it's a big part of what it means to be in the academy in some sense. I think teaching and mentorship is very important, and definitely uh, a big driving reason of why I want to pursue a PhD in the first place for me. Like it's more about the mentorship and the teaching than the research. But I mean, I guess if you enjoy both, then you get the best of both
Right, you get the
worlds, right?
best.
Yeah.
But think about how many professors you had in, maybe not at your college, but I went to a very, very large research
Right.
university, and I had professors that, no shame to them, but they had to teach a class out of obligation,
Yeah.
and you could tell they didn't really want to be there. They're way too smart to be teaching like a freshman calculus class.
Uh huh.
They make things too complicated. They don't care about the teaching, and you end up having to teach yourself
Right.
a lot of the material, or you have a TA to help guide you. But I think that's what kind of scares me about joining academia is I want to be a really, really good teacher,
Mm-hmm.
but these institutions, they get their money through research and through these grants,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm sure my calculus professor definitely got. But I think it's hard also because in PhD programs you could learn how to be a good researcher, but you are never actually taught how to be a good teacher. You're
Mm.
just
Mm.
thrown into TA positions
Mm-hmm.
because you have the content knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
but you might not have the right skills to be a good TA or be a good professor
I
because
see.
lots of candidates also teach.
Yes, that I completely agree with that, and that actually kind of segues into my next question: is how did you pick up those TA skills? Because right now, I mean, you mentioned that you were a TA in your master's program, and now
Mm.
you're also currently teaching a course in well Cornell, and so. How did you kind of develop those skills and pick up those skills, and what did you find that was helpful?
Yeah. I think in undergrad at Cal, we have this very cool system called DCALs, which is Democratic Education at Cal. And they're basically 1 or 2 credits, pass fail, and they're all taught by students. They're from topics from like Settlers of Catan to Kanye West's music to taiko drumming. And I took the Intro to Photoshop and Illustrator class as a freshman, and I loved it so much. And that's kind of what got me into the design part of my former career. And I joined the club that ran this class, and I was like, I really had a good time with this class. Like, maybe I should try teaching it. I ended up teaching it for, I think, 4 semesters. And that is how I really developed those skills. A lot of trial and error. But I think for me, I had such a good time in that class that I wanted to replicate that feeling for all of these new students coming in. And I also think that's one of my favorite parts of my college experience.
Okay. So it stemmed from college and then all the way into your master's program. And so what was the difference between teaching something that was like, I don't want to say a hobby, but definitely something that carried over from what you learned? How was that transition doing teaching like that versus teaching a course in your master's program?
Yeah. I think they're actually a lot more similar than different.
Okay.
Because teaching someone how to use pen tool and Illustrator is a skill. Right? And teaching someone how to do a t-test is also a skill.
Okay.
Right? That they can apply to their work. So, for a pen tool, they can apply that to their courses where they can, do something creative. Whereas here, you give them these tools or different tests in statistics, and they can apply it to their data. So I think they are very similar. I would say that the homework for the design class was a lot more fun. We would make like infographics and, album covers, where I'm sure all of my students from the quant classes would say that the homework was definitely not fun.
Not fun. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I know. It's always easier to have the answers and be explaining something.
Right.
And so definitely feel that teaching things like stats was a lot easier because I had the answers already.
Okay.
Whereas in design, if someone asked me a question about a tool or a scenario I've never seen before, it's harder to kind of improv on the spot.
Yeah, that does make sense. And so, what stresses you out the most with teaching? Like, what kind of keeps you up at night?
Oh man, how my students are doing.
Oh,
I
that's
just
sweet.
want them to do well. I want them to make sure that they understand the material and that it's actually useful for them.
Okay.
So when people don't hand in their homework, it really does keep me up at night.
Okay.
But they're also adults. At this point, you're paying for these programs. And if you're not doing your homework, I can't be a babysitter chasing you down for all of your work.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're teaching those different types of students. You're not teaching like high
Yeah.
schoolers or anything like that.
Exactly. I think that's a huge difference. It's like if you
Right.
teach high school, for some of them, they're kind of forced to be there. Of course, yeah, you can drop out, but for a lot of them, they have to be there. Whereas in college and in grad school, you are paying for this experience. And so you learn to take responsibility for your own time management
Right.
and your own work.
Right. And so I kind of want to take a step back. And so I already got a sense of this based off of like hearing about your experiences. In your master's program, what was your favorite class that you took and why was it impactful or your favorite?
I feel like my favorite class, well, there are classes that are the most useful in terms of teaching you, the how to use R, for example. That class is super, super useful. But I think the one that I found most, that I think would be my favorite or found the most interesting was the geospatial analysis one.
Okay.
GIS, the graphic information systems.
Yes.
So it was a class just teaching you how to map, like how to, plot all these different points on a map or how to, join those points to their neighborhood. And I think that I liked it so much because it was a way to visualize data. And I think as a designer, that's something I care a lot about. And I think a lot of times scientists put their work out there for other scientists in a way that normal people can't understand. And at the end of the day, especially when it comes to healthcare or, biomedical research, the people that are being helped are like average folks, especially in the age of COVID, like knowing where the hotspots are or being able to visualize that for people to see is more important than ever. And so I would say that the mapping class, I found it really fun to just create different types of maps every week.
So like, what did you create maps of, like, in the classroom setting? Was it like infectious diseases? Was it about I don't know what else. What else is there? Like,
Yeah. I mean, we had a different like sort of topic every week, but the example that came up a lot was I think it was like toxic emissions. And so there was, you could take a state map and you would, build it out into the counties. You'd have the counties, and then you would have these like emissions data, and then you could color the different counties based on, how much emissions they produce compared to the other counties in the state.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
You should talk to Matthew Norton about that. He has a cool podcast, by the way, on about the planet. So
when are you guys collabing on that? That's
well,
a good question.
moving on to my kind of next overall arching question is, what are your research interests? What kind of problems get you excited?
In my job right now, I don't come up with the questions.
Right.
Researchers, mostly physicians, tell me what their hypothesis is. They have a certain data set associated with it, and then I do the stats for it. But I think where I think I'm most interested in this field is actually urban health or urban design, and the intersection of how design affects your health. And so an example I can give of that is like noise and light pollution. Like, we both live in New York City. Like, I sleep way better when I'm in my parents', quiet neighborhood compared to my apartment, which is above a restaurant that used to be a bar,
Yeah.
And so things like that, and how a lot of times they're like very disparate. And an example I can give you is like in the Bay Area, in San Francisco proper, all of the trains are underground. It's really expensive to tunnel underground, but in San Francisco, everything is underground. In parts of the East Bay, these trains are above ground. So not only is it increasing noise in certain areas, it's a conscious decision to do that in a lot of places. It's cheaper to build above ground. And oftentimes the above ground trains are in low income neighborhoods. And so it kind of drives people who are already struggling a lot, where now they can't sleep as well because this loud train is coming through, and it puts their body in a state of chronic stress. And so all of these kind of built environment decisions totally affect people's health, including freeways. If you have a freeway running through the middle of a city, then all of the people who live around there, that's so much pollution that they have to ingest on a daily basis compared to someone who lives, in a quiet suburban neighborhood.
I see. So you're like, you really enjoy looking at kind of all the negative externalities associated with kind of location and like how
the
does
built environment.
Built environment, okay, and how that mainly impacts your health, or is it like more just like health, socioeconomic status, I don't know, wealth, well-being, stuff like that, right? Or
Yeah, I think it's all like your happiness and your health and your wealth are all very interconnected.
I see.
As your social determinants of health. But it's not all depressing. It could be really cool, like the way public green space is distributed, or increasing access to bike lanes, or making Manhattan car free one day. Like, those are all kind of an interesting intersection of design, urban planning, environment, economics, and also health.
I see. Okay, so that's cool to hear. And of course, it just kind of plays into kind of your interest in terms of just mapping everything out in terms of the visualization, but also plays into the sense that there's like a wide range of kind of topics to play with and not necessarily constrained to kind of one small detail or something like that. So
For sure.
that's really cool. Do you have any like research work that you've worked on that you want to highlight, or any kind of research work that you're working on right now that you want to highlight?
Oh, interesting. Um, I did a lot of COVID work for Cornell in the last year, and a project that I'm pretty proud of because we published it last year in the summer when things were still feeling pretty uncertain. It looked at COVID testing in healthcare workers, and we stratified by what type of healthcare worker they are, whether they are frontline, were they, on the floor in a different capacity, or were they support staff, or were they even like custodial staff. And we looked at how, different groups tested positive, and compared those rates. We looked at that and how race and ethnicity affected this. And basically, I feel like, hopefully it helped at least one researcher who read it and, gave them something to think about, or added to, the known knowledge of how COVID has really devastated the entire world. And I think, I don't want to, I don't remember exactly, but people who are frontline, like physicians and nurses, actually had less positive in our study compared to folks who were like on the floor. I think compared to like, physical or respiratory therapists, which is kind of an interesting question of at that time, does that mean like PPE and stuff was not as well distributed?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I would have expected, I think, the opposite to be true.
Yeah,
But
I think we did too.
yeah, that's a very interesting conclusion. But um, so that's like kind of the one of the works that you've done on COVID. Is there anything? I think COVID is a really big deal right now, obviously, and
Totally.
we've been living in this world for a year, and I think you've been at this role for almost as long as like COVID has been happening in some sense, right?
Oh man,
Or
it really feels like that. Yeah. I
so
started September 2019.
yeah, so I guess it was like
So,
off by like 6 months, right? But
yeah, but
basically, it's been COVID.
exactly. I've spent more time working from home than working at my office.
I see. Yeah. So, was there any kind of other work that was tied to COVID, that you had to work on that was really important, or high priority given the new environment?
Yeah, this isn't published work, but I think it's important where my coworker and I would send daily reports of cases in the city because we were just one hospital,
Right.
whereas my coworker and I, dug through the Department of Health site before the data was very clean and,
Uh-huh.
provided in a central spot. We would go and dig through archived versions of the websites in order to find cases and help build projections for what we thought would happen.
Oh, okay. So then it was like a manual thing, based off of just the data that was like kind of housed in random spots.
Yeah, it was like each day the DOH produced, or Department of Health published like a PDF.
Oh
And so we would
God.
have to manually go in and,
Oh my
pull numbers
goodness.
from a PDF. Now there's a GitHub page. There's really great New York City COVID data if anybody is interested in taking a look. It's very streamlined now, but in those early days, it was a mess.
Oh, so you're not working on that type of stuff anymore, right? Or
Yeah, I feel like COVID is looking pretty hopeful.
yeah.
The vaccination rates are looking really good, and now a lot of researchers are now have time to attend to their previous work that wasn't COVID related. So I'm
Ah,
getting a
okay.
lot of projects that are non-COVID, and it's kind of refreshing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so that actually kind of led me to my next question. It was like, what
Mhm.
does your work usually look like during normal times? Because it's not all about COVID, and although your background is in epidemiology,
Mhm.
there are other topics within epidemiology that's not COVID and not Dr. Fauci. So,
Yeah.
what does that look like usually? Like
Like
what
my
kind of
day to
topics?
day.
Yeah, like either day to
Oh
day or
yeah.
the kind of the other topics that you
Mm.
explore.
Yeah. So for us, we're actually our time is contracted.
Hmm.
And so each of us, 20% of our time is with this department. For me, like I work with the pediatrics department. I work with the trauma surgery department. I do programming for this large clinical data network. And then we have like pro bono statistical consulting. And so it really covers this huge breadth of biomedical research. I did a project on Labrador retrievers for the Animal Hospital of New York a while ago. And so it really, really, I think one of the great joys of my job is getting to learn about all of these different fields that I would otherwise never come across. Like I did a project on cat allergies and how different treatments for cat allergies compared.
In terms of getting knowledge across various different fields, what are you thinking in terms of taking those skills forward? Are you going to be continuing to hopefully go down, I don't know, doing research, or did you want to kind of like do a complete 180 into something else in the future?
Yeah, I mean, for now, I'm really happy at my job and I'm excited to continue because I feel like with new projects, I get to learn new statistical methods that I either just learned about in school and never have gotten to use. And now I have, you know, in school, you have all these perfect data sets. And in real life, that's never the case. There's so much missingness. It's really messy. And so I get to learn a lot and I still feel like I have a lot to learn as of now.
Right.
And so I'm definitely excited to continue. But who knows eventually? I would love to be like, again, a community college teacher or a high school science teacher at some point too.
Oh, okay, interesting. So you want to be like oh, you didn't do your homework, you better turn this in, kind of like, or at least you would be willing to take on that kind of burden.
Yeah.
To have a more opportunity to teach, I suppose, right?
I can't wait to be like 50 and just retire from whatever career I'm doing and just be a high school science teacher. And at that age, I'm not taking shit from any teenager. So if you don't do your homework, you gotta face me.
Oh, that's pretty scary. But you know, that's the type of discipline that's what makes good students, I suppose. And so
yeah, I think it like is just there's so much need for good science teachers, or I don't care if my students want to study science. That doesn't bother me. I don't need everyone to be in bio or be a doctor or, you know, go into physics. I want people just to understand how science affects their life. And I think with COVID, and especially folks who are, you know, deny COVID is real or don't believe in the vaccine, I think all of that could not just be not remedied. Obviously, this is a very great, deeper issue, but understanding science and understanding when things like this happen, the mechanics behind it, and understanding how science affects your life on a daily basis, that is what is important. Like, I want students to not be scared of it. Yeah. But they don't have to do that as their career.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just being like an educated average person, and not kind of basically being able to pick out what is myth and what is fact.
Exactly.
In a very digestible way, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And so, exactly I mean, that's interesting because I wanted to ask you this question, like, as a public health, or as a trained public health expert in some sense, how has that impacted your view of COVID? Because, like, you might have a better read of certain literatures or certain research that the other people might not have. And so how's that impacted you, and how have you done some part in terms of educating others?
Yeah. I feel like, again, I'm not an infectious disease person at all, but I think because of my public health background and the fact that I work for a hospital, I've become the de facto source of information for a lot of my friends. With the vaccine, I can give a good example. With the vaccine, some of my friends texted me like about the blood clots. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. Like, what do you think about it? And I was like, there's a greater chance of blood clots from your birth control. Like, I think there's like a 1 in 2,000 chance of getting blood clots on oral contraceptives versus for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it's like a 1 in million chance of getting blood clots. And so, calming people down, helping them just parse through the vast amount of information that gets thrown at them every day and these very sensationalist headlines. Just calming them down and explaining kind of the biology behind it.
Okay.
I feel like even though it is scary and there's still always a chance, I think having a rational voice explain it in a very relatable way, at least I hope has helped calm a couple of my friends down.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I can personally say this is a personal testimony um, of the times that I've hung out with you, and in terms of what you've done based off of what you've kind of posted in the club team group meet chats. They've been pretty helpful in terms of helping people understand. Though to be honest, I wouldn't worry about kind of educating or like telling people that COVID is real within our group chat. Like that wasn't an issue. But mostly in terms of kind of like, oh, what are the risks and kind of what are the chances of X happening? I think that was very important, and I think it's very valuable. And I will say every time I meet up with you, I'm super cautious. And so like before I was cautious, but then I'm like super cautious because I'm just like, oh, I'm in the presence of a health expert. I gotta be on my best behavior, So
I mean, I'm definitely not a health expert. I definitely still, eat more fast food than I care to. But I'm glad that it makes you at least consider these things. Yeah. That's, all I can hope.
I think that's very important. And I think just kind of your expertise and then the information that you provide and the things that you do to help kind of calm people down have been very helpful. And I hope that can kind of continue not only in like your professional life, but in your personal life and other aspects as well. So yeah, that's like all the questions mainly I had regarding your background. It just seems like you had a breadth of experience from kind of, and a breadth of interest too, from like design to like public health, and to all the wonderful kind of research topics that you're exploring right now. And hopefully they all serve you well, and best of luck in terms of whatever your future endeavors will be on that regards, whether it be teaching, whether it be more research, whatever the case may be.
Oh, thanks, KLAI. I mean, you'll be there every step of the way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very excited actually to see kind of where you end up in terms of, what you end up doing with like your breadth of knowledge and your experience and whatnot. And yeah. So that being said, I don't want to end it just yet. I do have a little quick game that I like to play with a lot of my guests, and it is a Q&A game, and so I'm just going to be asking you some random questions and then just rattle and answer straight off the top of your head, and if you want to explain, feel free. So are you ready for this?
Love that. I'm ready whenever you are.
All right, so we're going to start with a very, very easy question, okay? So what is your favorite color?
Green, because green candy tastes the best.
Green candy tastes the best. Isn't green usually like apple candy?
Yeah, or lime, mint.
Oh, okay. What is your beverage of choice?
I do like coffee a lot, with a little splash of oat milk. And I love me a good tangerine White Claw.
I hear you're a pretty big foodie, so what has been your favorite thing to eat, at least recently in New York City?
I mean, you've been on a bunch of food adventures with me, so I don't know how you're excusing yourself from this conversation. I think over the winter, going to Raku for udon was definitely one of my favorite memories. Recently, I've been eating a lot of dry pot from Mala Project, but also on 108 and Broadway, there's the 108 dry pot.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely, I would say that, dry pot.
Okay. How do you handle spicy food?
Ooh, are we gonna do hot ones?
I mean,
you should have sent me some hot sauces, KLAI.
Oh yeah, dude, I missed opportunity. But how do you usually handle your spicy food?
I think I'm pretty good compared to the general population.
Okay.
But in my family, I am the weakest link.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. What was the last song that you listened to?
I think it was Bye 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 by NSYNC.
Okay.
I'm listening to some like 2000s pop playlist right now.
Okay. But what is your usual like general music vibe?
I think because so much of my life is spent at work, I listen to a lot of sort of electronic music just because I like the upbeat part to keep me focused.
Okay.
And outside of that, oh man, I'm not very interesting when it comes to music. I really like Maggie Rogers.
Okay. Last TV show that you watched.
I'm watching Ted Lasso right now.
Okay. I
Have
don't
you
think.
heard of it?
No, I have not.
It's on Apple TV, and basically it's an American football coach who is
Mm-hmm.
just so lovely and optimistic, gets hired to be a soccer coach in England,
Okay.
and he has never played or coached soccer before, and it's just such a wholesome and lovely show.
Okay. So you like the wholesome and lovely like TV shows?
Yes,
Okay. Something feel
love
good.
them.
Okay. What was the last item that you purchased?
Um, Probably some band-aids for the turf burn that I got at pickup on Tuesday.
Oof.
Yeah.
Feel better.
Thank you. Thank you.
How many hours of sleep do you get on average?
Eight.
Healthy. Very healthy.
8 to 9 even, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
I aspire to be that. So.
I for the listeners at home, every time I see KLAI, I ask him when he went to sleep the night before, and it's always something like 4 a.m.
But you see me on the weekend, so it's a different story. You don't see me after the weekdays, so
I still feel like you're not sleeping enough. Anyway,
okay.
I
Okay.
try to sleep 8 to 9 if
Eight
I
to
can.
9 hours. Gotcha. What is your biggest pet peeve?
People who are walking down the street and stop for no reason, and then you have to like walk around them,
Yeah.
or you crash into them because they stopped without warning. This was a bigger issue when there was more people in the streets,
Right.
but it's still something that bugs me.
Okay. And so I know you are a West Coast gal, so
Oh yeah.
Shake Shack or In-N-Out?
Oh, I'm gonna say In-N-Out because Shake Shack is crazy expensive.
Okay. So it's not value. I mean, so you're sorry, you're into it for the like value, basically.
Totally. And I think the milkshakes at In-N-Out are super good, and again, just cheaper.
Okay. And next question is related. East Coast versus West Coast. Which one do you prefer?
Ooh, very interesting. It's interesting because when I was on the West Coast, everyone said that I was a very East Coast person because I'm probably the most high-strung person to come out of the West Coast.
Okay.
But on the East Coast, people always can tell that I'm from the West Coast. So I think I'm going to say West Coast. The pace of life is so much slower in a
Uh-huh.
good way for me.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think that's something that if you've never lived/worked on the West Coast, like I'm sure there's still very busy industries. Like I'm
Mhm.
sure finance is still very busy, but I feel like in general, the pace of life is a little slower.
Cool. And then final question, or is more like a for both of us to answer in some sense. What
Ooh.
was the first impression? Like, what was our first impression of each other?
Ooh. I think mine was how come I've never seen this person play frisbee before? They're so good.
My God.
Or I think I remember you having your hood up when I first met you, and I was like, who is this? How old is this skinny little boy over there?
Skinny little boy. Yeah, that's a pretty accurate description. Oh, what was my first impression? I think I didn't like I knew who you were, but then it wasn't until after the season when I actually got to like know you much better. I was like very shy during the club season, and so like when we first met, I was like really shy and like didn't really talk to that many people outside of like people I already knew. And so I was just like, oh, like she seems really cool, but she seems too like social. And I feel very shy in front of her. And I mean, although I still kind of do a little bit, but it's like less. It's like that's more like a kind of a meme now instead of like it actually being true. And
Good.
so
Coming out of your shell.
I know exactly. I think speaking with you over the past year, like when we weren't playing frisbee, was honestly really rewarding. And yeah, it was just really nice to get to know you a lot more and
Yeah.
like understand you better and party and everything
Yeah.
and do
I
all the
really
fun
value
things.
our time together,
Yeah,
especially just like being so down to go try new food
right,
or just hang out.
right.
And yeah, that makes me really happy that we've gotten to hang out so much in the last,
Yeah. So I
like,
went from
despite COVID.
exactly. So I went from being somewhat intimidated and shy to like like sibling kind of thing, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for playing that game. It was really fun and getting
Anytime.
to know more about you.
Of
Um,
course.
but also, thank you so much once again for being on the show. I think I can say for me, I learned a lot more about you, and there were a lot of things that I didn't even know going into the interview. And so, thank you so much for answering all those questions. And it was really nice time to be able to catch up with you virtually, but
Yeah.
also kind of have this kind of conversation as well.
Definitely. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really have a great time, and you ask such good questions. Like, it really is a skill, and I am so honored to have been on your show.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anyways, for all the listeners out there, as always, thank you so much for listening to the show. And I will hope to see you all next time on the Social Science Kaleidoscope. Bye bye, everyone.